Hello, class. Welcome to UB Lecture 3, the recruitment interview. I am your professor, Jean Filipiak, and I am happy to be here today. Of course, as you know, I'm working from home, so you may hear a stray mocha in the background. If anyone cares to know, it is a Yorkie, so a Yorkie and a Shih Tzu put together, and he is the love of our lives, along with Sheldon, who is our golden retriever. So they definitely cause havoc. So we have a few more people who are joining us. I'm just going to give it one more minute as we begin this lecture. I know there were a few of you who reached out to me in the past 24 hours in regards to a little bit of clarification in regards to the assignments that are due and feeling if they're on track and moving in the right direction. The good news is the majority of everyone is moving in the right direction. I'm going to share, let's see if I show my screen at this point. Okay. Okay, we're all here. Welcome, everybody. Just a little housekeeping rules. Rules. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the process if I don't get to them. Like yesterday, it was very effective when I got to it at the end, so let's stick with that process. But feel free to ask during the presentation, and then, like I said, I'll get back to it at the end. Feel free to chat me, but I'm not very good at multitasking, so I'll try to address your questions and or your comments during the whole process. We had some individuals reach out to us in regards to, are we moving forward? Is everything, am I supposed to be handing in anything yet? What's going on? So let's just start with housekeeping. What is due as we speak is the online assessment should have been completed, paid for, and everybody should have been cruising through the online career reform support class. And everyone should be accomplishing human resources part 1, human resources part 2. Now, obviously, Godspeed, go ahead and continue throughout the online course. You may jump ahead. You may do whatever you need to do in order to crunch this in within the days that we have left. So, once again, assessment, pay for the assessment, online course, and then also yesterday we had the webinar, and in that webinar was a question in regards to your assessment and behaviors. So that is now due and emailed over to me. We also have Unit 2 due on the 12th, and we also have the job description and summary due on the 12th. So that's what I want to make sure you're all aware of. And then after this webinar, I am going to actually, let's see here, I'm going to give you the webinars that you need to listen to after this webinar that are already pre-recorded. So let me just get to the date. Okay, so here we are on January 10th. What is important is we're going to go through the 5 fingers of the recruiting process live here, but what is encouraged for you to listen to is the extra credit 2 webinars I am suggesting that you listen to, and then write up in a summary on what you learned. And the first one is Hire Right the First Time, and then Superior Workforce Recruiting Identification Tactics. It's just going to reinforce a lot of what you're learning today, but I can't emphasize enough once I get into my mojo how important it is to really understand what's happening on the employer side. And those 2 extra credit write-ups are really going to reinforce really getting to know that audience and understanding what they're going through in order to find top talent. I will use attendance by the registration bar that I received after the webinar is accounted for. And I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you if you have questions. And if not, you always have the opportunity to sidebar with me after the webinar and etc. So welcome, everybody. So let's see here. I'm going to flip. Well, before I move on, any questions about up to this point, January 10th and 11th? I'll pause for a minute to see if anyone would like to write down any questions. Okay, so I'm going to go down and see. So then on the 12th, you will be required to listen to the job search toolkit and that webinar. Once again, I believe you're writing up a summary to let me know that you did listen to it and what you learned in this job search toolkit that's due on the 12th, the next day. You want to, actually it's not due on the 12th, you're supposed to listen to it and then you can submit your findings anytime next week. But the goal for the reason why I want you to listen to this webinar is that as we move away from the employer side of the business, we go back to the job seeker side, and the job search toolkit starts giving you the fundamentals about how to orchestrate your own resume. And then the online course will also provide you a great resource on how to develop your resume. Then through the 12th through the 15th, you are actually working on your resume and then submitting your resume to me on the 19th. So next week is definitely a lot easier week than what you're probably experiencing this week with the 2 virtual webinars that we have. And required you to be at a place at 8 p.m. So that's what I'd like to share about that. And I think everything else is self-explanatory. When I say it's due next day, if you're listening to the Nail the Interview process on the 16th, then it's due on the 17th. Become the Interview King. If you listen to the 17th, it's due on the 18th. When you're looking at the online branding webinar, and completing the brand and technology online course due the next day, so then it's due on the 19th, and then working on your LinkedIn profile, which is due on the 22nd. When all else fails, please have it due on the 24th. Now, I would just appreciate it if you did it accordingly when it was due, so this way I'm not inundated with everyone's information on one day. So I think you can tell by my training style, I'm very flexible, and I just want to make sure you guys get the most out of this course and be able to utilize as much as you can out of this course. And then right after that, we go right into mock interviews. So I'm very excited to be able to get your job descriptions this Friday, because that'll allow me to start lining up everyone's mock interview appropriately and then give you advance notice who you're meeting with. All right, let's get the actual webinar portion of the session going. So I'm going to move my screen. Oh, I see a question. Hold on. All right, yesterday I was able to get this really big and open this up bigger. Hold on. All right, hold on, Alexis. I'm getting, is extra credit also going to extra credit going to the EDU mail? Yes, go ahead and send it to the EDU email. Thank you. Yes, that is correct. Okay, let's get started. So let's get this in a slideshow mode from the beginning. All right, so we're experiencing the 5 fingers of a job search. The more you think like an employer, the better you're able to speak employer. Employers use a multifaceted approach to find the perfect candidate. So it only makes sense that you as a job seeker also need to use the 5-finger strategy. So although I'm asking you to be employers today, I also want you to think about how this would fit into your career strategy as we go through this process. So yes, you're wearing the hat of a hiring manager, but never lose the hat of a job seeker. So before I go into the 5 fingers of the strategy, I think it's important for all of you to know that as you are now a hiring manager, it is very clear that hiring managers today have to go through great lengths to find top talent. Now, if you recall when we first got together, I had mentioned that there was a big shift in the employment world. The shift was probably as big as the Grand Canyon, and it started about 2005. Really 2000, but it really became to a head in 2005. And the reason why there was such a big change of what was happening between what employers were thinking and feeling and what job seekers were thinking and feeling was the major shift was technology. So technology has really changed the way we do business. I mentioned this before and I'll repeat it again. We're all working and moving harder, smarter, and faster and trying to do better. We're doing a lot more with less, and that's no different in the employment sector. When we lived in those simpler times I mentioned to you yesterday, it was a lot easier for an employer to say, I need a candidate, and then go to the yellow pages or run an ad in the old print newspaper, and then they came. Now, because of technology, they're not coming as readily, but now they post jobs, so the print moved to job postings, so it became very easy, so you would think, but that's the problem. It became too easy. So it's very easy for a candidate to point and click. So now employers are inundated with masses of resumes coming through their door, but those resumes are not what they deem possibly qualified for their open positions. So what do? They add in what is called the applicant tracking system, which is a software system that pretty much just weeds out those resumes specifically and only wants to speak to those resumes that are related to the job. So there's many conversations as a hiring manager would have is, where do we find these good people? How do we find these good people? And then once we get them, what do we do with them? So before I discuss where we find our applicants, I think it's important to know that as a hiring manager, they put in a lot of training, they're supposed to put in a lot of training to really understanding the laws of what it's like to hire and what they need in order for that hire to be successful. So today, when I said we lived in much simpler times, it was easy when we would say, okay, can you do the job? How much are you going to pay me? I mean, they do the job and how much we're going to pay them? And then job seekers, on the other hand, are saying, can I do the job? Do I want to do the job? And how much am I going to make? But now it's becoming a lot more complicated than that. And that's why we spent that time looking at the assessment of you, because as an employer and a hiring manager, I'm putting the assessment as part of the application process, because I need to not only see your resume, talk to you about it, but I want some inside scoop about you. And then I also want you to go through an interview process to make sure that everybody on our team today, no longer just the human resource manager that hires you or the president of the organization, they want everybody in that organization to have a thumbs up. That's why you're seeing more frequently a phone interview take place over a live interview. And then after the phone interview is successful, that is the only time that they'll bring you in to waste the time of the people that work there, right? So that's why you're going to see a phone interview more extensive. You're going to see a live interview. And then we also do panel interviews. And then we do tours. We may do ride-alongs. We may have you have an assessment if you didn't take it in the beginning, somewhere in the middle. I have more and more in a higher level positions, the hiring manager requests to take out the person who's vying for the job, but also their significant other, because that's how important they want them to consider this opportunity. So let's pause there, because the next thing I want to talk about is, as a hiring manager, you really have to know those laws. And as you look at those laws for EEO laws, as job seeker, you should be aware that they shouldn't be asking you these questions, but as employers and future hiring authorities, you have to know that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is still well in play, and that you cannot discriminate against race, color, gender, religion, or national origin. And now, because of the Disability Act that has passed for some time now, you have to make sure that you're not discriminating individuals that have a disability. So the questions that are sometimes asked in an interview and that shouldn't be asked are as follows. So I'm going to test your common sense and your knowledge of EEO laws. So did you know, well, actually we'll start here. Asking the question, are you a U.S. citizen? Think about that. Are you a U.S. citizen? Is it lawful or unlawful, or depends to ask that question? I realize in this situation, it's hard for anyone to respond to me, But if someone would like to kind of write down their answer in the chat bar, please go ahead and do that, or in the question bar. I'd like to see if anyone knows that answer. Are you a U.S. citizen? Is it lawful, unlawful, or depends? No one's going to take a stab at it, huh? That's okay. I get it. Oh, lawful. Thank you very much for it, lawful. All right, now I'm seeing, and then I see a depends. All right, the answer is unlawful. So the moral of the story, and I'll go through other questions, but you can only ask questions as it relates to the job, okay? So asking a U.S. citizen is unlawful because it can go through the protected classes, and let's look at those protected classes again, is religion, national origin. Now, I know someone said depends. So if you are working for a government contract, and as part of the job description, you have to be a U.S. citizen, then you are able to ask, are you eligible to work in the United States? That is the right way to ask that question. So moving on, how did you lose those 3 fingers on your left hand? That is unlawful because it may typically not have anything to do with the job. If it has something to do with the job, the better way to ask that question, is there anything that we need to be aware of that will prohibit you from performing this job successfully? If they disclose, well, I lost my 3 fingers and they're talking about it, then in that casual conversation, you can ask, how did you lose it? But only if they bring that up first. I see you were in the Marine Corps from 2001 and 2008. What kind of discharge did you receive? That is unlawful. You cannot ask that question because it goes back to probing into possibly a disability-related incident, and probing further into that could cause the breaking of law. And I thought this was interesting. Can you ask, are there any marriages in the offing? Hopefully we all know by now that that's unlawful, has nothing to do with the job. Do you mind if I call you Candy? What do you think about that one? Oh, geez. I can't see my questions like I did so nicely. Okay. I can't see anyone's answers. Oh, well. All right. We'll keep moving on. I see lawful, depends. Yep, same people. Okay. So do you mind if I call you Candy? It's actually lawful. It's a way to address a person. Actually, no, forgive me. It's unlawful. You're right. You're probably all thinking I'm crazy. It's unlawful because it's going in the gender and or the protected class of minorities. So just an FYI there. Do you smoke? Is actually unlawful because that is part of the Disability Act. You can indicate that your culture is a non-smoking culture, but you cannot indicate and ask if they smoke. You just can re-emphasize that our culture is non-smoking, and will this be a good fit for you? So that's how you can reframe that question. And then a lawful one would be, which computer programs do you use? Obviously, that has something to do with the job. So when in doubt, as a hiring manager, it's your responsibility to protect the company. And as you protect the company, it's your responsibility to seek out information that you can or cannot do while you're going through the interview process or getting ready to do the interview process. The other thing I want to talk about is preparing for that interview. So I just mentioned to you, everybody in an organization today gets an opportunity to give you a thumbs up, from a receptionist to a person who's not even related to the role, to obviously the key people who you would think. So if you're going for sales and marketing manager, everybody has a say in the position, and everyone's really sitting in a room, believe it or not, and going over and saying, what is the applicant profile? What is the right person? What do they look like? Why is the role open? And they spend a tremendous amount of time, money, and resources trying to identify what that picture looks like. Then they take that information and they create a job posting. Now, many companies you may see out there as hiring managers, especially really big companies, they just cut and paste their job description and put it in the job posting. As a hiring and a recruitment coach, that is not the right thing to do. Your job description is not your job posting. Your job posting is an advertisement to get your candidates to respond to that ad, and you really should uncover their motivators of why they would want to work for your company and speak more about what's in it for them than not. The job description becomes a legal document when a person starts to give you the identification of what you are going to be required to do in order to be successful in that specific role. So we just sat around the room, talked about the applicant profile. We just talked about the requirements of the job, and then we also talked about how we're going to advertise the job, and we created a job posting, but also we have to have an application form. What's important to know is the application form is the legal document that we are able to give to job seekers, and we want to make sure that that job application also is in alignment with the EEO laws. But what is interesting about that is that if you, as a job seeker, now I switch my hat here, if you're filling out an application, you want to make sure that everything that is on the application is true. Omission is grounds for termination. So if you omit something on there and they find out afterwards, we have every right to terminate you because that is a legal document. So be mindful of that. So as a hiring manager, I have an application form, and then from there I want to see resumes. That's still very important, a part of the process. You do want cover letters, and then we also want to make sure that we request references and maybe any recommendation letters. When we're looking at starting an interview process as a hiring authority, it's important for us to have a structure of the interview process, meaning we need to have a strong opening, we need to have the meat and potatoes of the interview process, and we have to have a close. And what I'm going to email you, actually I'll put it on UB Learn, is what is called the interview overview process. That is just a worksheet that you can use as a hiring authority that allows you to kind of put a script in place and a process in place in order for that interview process to be successful. So, and a lot of hiring authorities will not only take the script and the interview process that we're developing is maybe also being measuring you against I would call it a scorecard. And the scorecard is direct relationship to the applicant profile, and in the applicant profile is what we create the job description from, and then we're rating them. So if they need Microsoft Office, then it's very important for this role to be a level 5. So then when we're interviewing you, we're asking questions as it relates to that, and then as a hiring manager, we may be scoring you against it. So I'm exhausted just talking to you quickly about what an employer or a hiring manager has to do to get to the point where they finally have an interview. I'm exhausted talking about it. It's an exhausting process, but more importantly, what you need to understand is as we're spending a lot of resources, time and money, that it is so important that the investment in an employer that we have to make is 2.5 times a person's base salary. So let's just assume everyone here on this webinar is an entry-level stature, and they can expect, depending on their major and the occupation they're going into, expect to make anywhere between 35 to 55 in their entry-level position. Could be higher, could be lower, but let's just use that as an example. It's going to be 2.5 times your base salary of the investment a company goes through to find you, interview you, and hire you. So that's why employers are incredibly fearful of making the wrong hiring decision, because they're not looking to lose $35,000. They're really looking at losing a potential, minimally, $120,000 before you even start. So you can imagine that it is an investment to an employer. They no longer look at you as a body. They look at you as a person who can make a direct impact in their organization to be able to move that organization forward. So that's why, as hiring managers, you want to spend this upfront work to do it right the first time, so then you can avoid not only the hard costs that are associated to the hiring process, but the emotional cost that comes with it. And that is really, in 2005, we've seen a huge impact is the emotional cost, because when we lose somebody, yes, it's going to cost us money, but when we lose someone and that person just left Susie, now Susie has to do the work of two. Susie has to put in overtime. Susie's miserable because that was the best friend. So there's such an emotional attachment to individuals. If they work, if they don't work, that could be helpful or disruptive to an organization. So as hiring managers, you have to understand what is, as job seekers, you have to understand what is going on out there. But then also, hiring managers, when you listen to those webinars, you're going to really start understanding, even though you're a job seeker, what job seekers are thinking and feeling. Because times have changed, the economy is different. The days of staying at one company 4, 5, 10 years, 20 years no longer exist. Longevity today is 2 to 3 years now. And as long as you're making movements, and we're looking at resumes, and there's movement in your resume, and that movement makes sense, and it was purposeful, and you add it to your toolbox, that's what an employer, the hiring manager, should be looking for. So as hiring manager, you want to be mindful of that. So if you see someone with a company way too long, be respectful of that. Maybe they grew within that organization. Maybe there's things happening behind the scenes. And then as hiring managers, you have to really respect the fact that if someone was downsized or right size, there's an emotional thing happening, and they may not be on top of their game, and maybe they need a do-over in an interview, or maybe there's things happening behind the scenes that have to be under consideration. So hiring managers, we are all shapes and sizes. We're coming from human resources. We're coming from the department that the position is open for, but a hiring manager, like I said before, could be a janitor right down to a receptionist. And these are the things that's why it's even more important for hiring managers to get as much training and as much education about being in that hot seat than they've ever had before. So without further ado, the 5 fingers of the strategy of looking for a person is that I, as a recruiter, I've been doing this for 17 years, I just can't place an ad. I have to use a multifaceted approach in order to find top talent. And that 5-finger strategy is coming from networking. It's coming from referrals. I have to do research. I have to post ads on the internet, and I have to troll social media. So let's go a little bit further of what each of these mean. Did I go too far? Okay, 1, networking. So as a recruiter and a hiring professional, I have to spend a lot of time looking and being in the watering holes of where people hang out. So if I was filling an engineering position, I want to make sure that I'm in the social groups where engineers may belong to. Or sales. There's, in the local market of Buffalo, there's Buffalo, Niagara, and Sales and Marketing Organization. That's where there's a membership program, and they have events, and that's where everyone networks and mingles. So I may go there as a recruiter to really just connect and network too. So if I have an opportunity, I'm going to remember Joe. I met him at XYZ event, and then I have this opening, and I'm going to try to make that connection happen and let Joe know that I have an outside sales position for him and establish that rapport. So I have to attend professional events. I have to belong to professional associations, and then I also have to network on social media such as LinkedIn. LinkedIn has risen now to be the #1 professional networking site, and 80 to 90% of recruiters and hiring authorities use LinkedIn as a way to hire, as a way to establish a connection and hire. So that's why it's even more important for you to make sure you just don't have a profile. And obviously that's a whole nother class, but it's important for you to have a polished image via LinkedIn and use LinkedIn and to show that you are technology savvy, but also you're approachable in that regard. So referrals. So there's two types of referrals. You have internal referrals. Who do you know who? So a company could be working and you're actually, there's referral programs within that company. I'm sure some of you who are currently gainfully employed, you might get $500 for someone that you refer in that last or 90-day probation period. That has been such a huge source of how people get their individuals into their organization, because good people know good people. So they want people to refer and stay and engage. External referrals are very simple. You know, when you look at external referrals, it could be employment agencies, so it could be a company like APA Solutions or Career Reform, or I could be looking at aligning myself with career centers such as Bullseye and UB, or I could be going to the Department of Labor and looking at getting some unemployed people and posting my jobs there. So the list of external referrals are really endless, but these are the three major ones. Research, research, research. So as a recruiter and a hiring manager, I may need to look at other companies who may have my talent. So I'm looking and seeing and researching XYZ company, and they have a department of communication and sales and marketing professionals in that department, and then I'm going to research and see who works there, and I might use LinkedIn again to see who works there, and then I actually will pick up the phone and cold call them. And that's a whole nother script, but that is a part of the five-finger search process to find talent. So I just want to make you aware of that people still today cold call and will present an opportunity to you based on your career goals. The internet, we talked about this. So I'm still using internet job boards. I'm still using print. I'm still looking at trade publications. If you're not aware of your local business journal, in this area, it's Business First. It's important to tune into that because they will have advertisements there, or at least know what companies are on the rise. So if there's a promotion, someone had to backfill that role, so that's another way for us to look and advertise in all those mechanisms. So I wrote here, one size does not fill all. We have to customize the job description for every role that we have, and we want to make sure that we speak to those motivators of those job seekers, because we want to make sure that they want to be a part of our team as well. So we are trying to have and make that connection happen. Social media. As a hiring authority, I have to make sure that my company's brand, not product brand, but they're my talent brand. A talent brand is what a job seeker thinks, feels, and responds to an organizational company. And it can be past, it can be current, and it can be future employees, and it's the response to that specific workforce and work environment. So I actually forgot to put Glassdoor here, which is an important mechanism. I'm sure all of you are already aware of Glassdoor, and you may even be aware of other sites that allow you to rate the companies that you're working for. So if there's anything new out there that I'm not even aware of, feel free to email me or chat me and let me know. But majority of the companies have company profiles on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and Instagram that allow us to promote our product, but allow us to promote our talent brand, and then take it from there. So as job seekers, I'm switching that hat again, you should also be looking at all these places for your specific job. So the next slide is talking about the candidate profile. I actually going to get out of my presentation right now and go into my files, because I want you to see what a candidate profile looks like. It's coming. Oh wow, I must have scanned it up. Sorry for the dead air, but I'm just looking for the candidate profile. Where is it? Not the job search toolkit. Not the spring offer. See everything that I teach. Okay, well, you're not going to be able to see it. I'm going to try to think where else I would have stored it if it wasn't in my UV stuff. Okay, well, I will actually put it on UV Learns. How about that? I'll put the candidate profile on UV Learns, but you'll see the extensive questionnaire that an employer has to go through in order to, you know, get everyone on the same page looking for the right person. So here we go, our extra credit merit. You got the hire right the first time. We got superior workforce strategies. And then I thought it would be interesting to give you guys just you know, another little merit extra credit is the job seeker, oh my God, I can't even speak. Summer job search strategies. But keep in mind, these summer job search strategies can be used now and into the summer. So I will also have this on UV Learn, so you can just kind of click on that from that vantage point. So what a long day. I hope this information was helpful. I know I kind of fast forwarded and really spoke quickly, but I like both of those YouTube videos will be reinforcement to share with you how we coach employers, hiring managers, on how to be good at what they do. And if you hear how we're coaching them, then it'll be easier for you to understand them and then relate to them and then interview with them. So the interesting thing about this is if I was to kind of go and help you with what you're going to learn and nail the interview process and Interview King and those two webinars, just using the words I understand in the interview process with an employer is critical to your language that you're going to be using as we continue, as you go on your interview journey. So let me see if there's any questions. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Yay. Okay, hold on. I have a question here. Let me see if I can understand. It's from Alexis. Alexis, hold on. I've had a phone interview and it was incredibly awkward because it sounded so scripted on the part of the hiring manager. Is that the form of the initial interview typical to weed out unqualified? How does a hiring manager determine if one is eligible to move forward based on the form of interviewing? Okay, I think I understand your question. So basically you had a phone interview and it was awkward because it was so scripted, right? And I couldn't agree with you more because you have to understand the person on the other end probably got very little training, if at all training. And they're just like, here is your script. Read it, write down the notes, and then make the determination. And what I can share with you, be it a phone interview with an extensive script or in a phone interview just to set you up for a live interview, the goal there is for you to be enthusiasm and not to be robotic if it feels like they're being robotic. Smile in that interview over the phone is very, very important. But yes, what is happening about the phone interview, because everyone is doing, no one has time. So they will conduct a phone interview totally to eliminate you from the process. If they bring up, so let's just say if they bring up a question and they're scripted and they're like, okay, do you have XYZ? And you're like, oh, I don't have XYZ. You have to be careful with that because you want to say, you know, I understand it is important for this role to have XYZ. What I can share with you is I may not have the extensive knowledge you're looking for, but when I did this at my last job, I learned very quickly, and I am a quick learner, and I've been self-studying ever since I knew I had to have this role. You have to really be prepared to overcome some objections right away on the phone that they may have for you. But to answer your question, Alexis, it is a weed out reason, and what used to just be a quick call to get it scheduled or to kind of get some baseline information, then bring you in, the phone interview now has been like, we're looking to see if you have a pulse, we're looking to see if you have enthusiasm, we're looking to see if you're organized, we're looking to see if you're ready to have a conversation, we're looking to see if you are have done your research already, and all those things. And the only thing I'll add about this, about the phone interview, is if you get a phone call and you're not ready to have that conversation, don't pick up the phone. Let it go into voicemail. Nothing's worse than not being ready to talk to someone. Nothing's worse as a recruiter or hiring manager if I'm like, hey, Alexa, this is Jean from APA Solutions. I'm calling you in regards to the outside sales position that you applied to at Career Reform. And then you believe 9 times out of 10, I wish I got a positive response, but 9 times out of 10, it's like, what position? I'm sorry, I respond to so many ads. I have no idea which position you're talking about. Can you tell me more about you and what's going on? And that's very frustrating to a hiring manager because they do want that person to be ready and engaged and organized and know exactly why they're calling. So let it go into voicemail so you can be prepared. Now, in the event that you do catch it and you're not prepared, then just say, oh my goodness, employer, I've been waiting for this call. I'm very interested in meeting with you. However, I'm in a situation where I'm not able to have an in-depth conversation. Is it okay if we schedule something? Hopefully they'll say yes, but if not, they say yes, then all I can say is do the best that you can from that vantage point. How does the hiring manager determine if one is eligible to move forward based on the form of interviewing? The only way that I can answer that question, Alexis, is I almost did already, is they determine it by energy, or they determine it by the way you respond to the questionnaire, and then they regroup with their hiring people and they say, okay, this is what I have, this is what she has, but I got to tell you, she was so prepared on the phone. I got to tell you, she was so enthusiastic on the phone. 9 times out of 10 in that situation, they usually bring the person in. They don't bring the person in when they're unorganized, when they don't even have a pulse on the phone. I mean, they're just dead. They're just too busy to even talk, and they're busy. We always find that the unemployed people are the most busiest people that we've ever met. And on the contrary, an employer doesn't have that luxury. An employer is working, and an employer really expects that job seeker is spending 40 hours a week looking for a job and being focused on their job search and focused on how their background relates to the open position. So I answered that question really long-windedly, but I hope I answered your question. Any other good questions? Because now I can see my bar. I'm ready. Shoot them at me. You can ask me any question related to being a hiring manager or ask me a question as being a job seeker. There's not one question. Hello, hello. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions come to the forefront. So I am going to go ahead and hopefully everyone knows their marching orders. Please go to UB Learns for the most updated syllabus. UB Learns, it looks like they're going to be shut down on the 12th and the 13th, so you won't be able to access it at that time. So I'm going to get off this call and get on UB Learns to give the updated syllabus, but also I will put this PowerPoint on UB Learns and the one yesterday on UB Learns as well. And then obviously I will email you the recording of this specific virtual meeting. So without further ado, class is ended, guys. Keep on keeping on with the online course, and I look forward to your homework assignments coming in on the 12th. Have a great night.